My name's Johnathon Swanson. I'm a water resources supervisor with Polk County, Iowa, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
I'm Mark Kenyon.
I'm Dr. Julie Meechan.
I'm Steve Hansen.
I'm Jill Bebout.
Chad Gravy.
My name is Jeremy French.
I'm Laura Walter.
Carol Hawksbergen, owner of Hoxie Native Seeds, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
This is Hal Herring, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Podcast.
Skip Sly, Iowa Whitetail.
Valerie Van Coten, State Historical Society of Iowa.
Dr. Matt Helmer at Iowa State University.
My name is Kyle Laubarger with the Native Habitat Project.
I'm Judd McCullum. I appeared out of the wilderness, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
Welcome to the Prairie Farm Podcast.
One of my least favorite things in the whole world is dealing with red tape, paperwork, and bureaucracy. And at the very top of those things, insurance. I used to have, big company insurance because I thought me doing all the stuff online or with a robot phone call would be cheaper. Boy, was I wrong. My wife and I switched to McKay Insurance for everything personal and business that we interact with. And not only do we save over $1,000 a year, yes, $1,000 a year, we get to interact with real people. No longer having to deal with those robot phone calls, the terrible online interface. I mean, what is with those 1980 online interfaces? Well, we personally work with McKay Insurance. I can personally stamp my approval on working with them. I've worked with 5 different people from there. Every single one of them was incredible. And they give you big customer efficiency and pricing, if not better, with a very small company feel. They really take care of you. Highly recommend McKayINSagency.com. That's McKayINS agency.com. You won't regret it.
All right, John. So first of all, when we walked in, I'm a little offended. You thought I was Nicolas.
I know.
That's always.
I was so confident. You should be
honored. How shocked were you to find out that Nicolas was this super tall Filipino guy?
Yeah, incredibly shocked. Like, not the Iowa norm. There's too many old white guys around. And I was like, look at this, some diversity in the office. I like it. I'm from Des Moines, so like I was comfortable though. And so
Yeah. Well, I mean, you didn't skip a beat, but yeah, Kent walked through the door first. Nicolas?
Yeah. I was ready. I prepped the front desk. I was like, some folks come in, they probably have some cameras. I don't really know. We're doing a podcast. They're like, you're doing what? I'm like, don't worry about it. We'll be in the conference room.
Yeah, we're cool. Cool people do podcasts. Cool.
I hear good things.
Yeah.
I don't really know what we're talking about. I heard Prairie was in the name. I was like, I like Prairie.
Oh my goodness, dude, we're gonna be friends. We were talking about this off camera, but I was like, man, this guy has got the vibe of an entrepreneur, but he works in the public sector.
He also has the vibe of a fun hang. So I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for this conversation about conservation.
Do you hang out with friends anymore now that you have 3 kids?
Not as much. I don't know. I find ways that I'm big on like doing stuff with the kids. I got 3 daughters, and I still like to hunt, fish. I love canoeing rivers. That's like my thing. Fly fishing.
Oh yeah.
So I got a close group, and the thing is, I believe like getting some adventure in your life, and I still find ways to go out. Now the kids are all trying to get into it, and I'm like loving it. So it's been
that's cool.
Loving to do stuff outside, but when your kids love it too, and they get, I mean, it's like a whole new realm. So friends and the kids, they're marrying together, and I'm loving it right now.
That's
cool.
Great. That's great. Along the lines of being a fun hang, there was a time when we had a podcast with a guy who's pretty serious-minded, but I just had this vibe before we went into it, and I think we actually made a bet about this. I said I won't mention their name, but I said I bet you so-and-so has an opinion on fried pickles versus French fries. And Nick's like, no, he doesn't. He's not going to care about that.
Very intelligent, very serious person.
Yeah, you're like, we have to break the ice.
Yeah. And so I asked him, I was like, fried pickles or French fries?
He like slid it in real smooth. Kent did.
Yeah. Very professional question.
And he had a strong opinion on it. And so then we knew like this guy would be a fun hang after. But
this was a good decision after all.
Yeah.
Well, look, there's in some of our interviews, incredible interviews, and you leave and you're like, that was a good 2-hour interaction, and I'm glad it was a 2-hour interaction. You know what I mean? And a lot of them, we text, we call, we hang out, we email after, we're buds with them. But some of them, it's like, you're a professional, you do what you do. I'm grateful for you over there.
I'm on a mission to have real meetings in life, and I tell you, there's a lot of government folks that like they just want to show up, do their business, maybe not even do that much business, and then like go back to their office. And I'm like, we're feeling the vibes 1 second into the meeting. Like, all right, we're gonna have real talks today, and like those of you might be a little uncomfortable, but there's like I call it the uncomfortable is like we're growing together.
Yeah.
We're gonna have some real talk, and like people tend to appreciate it. And just like let's have some real conversations.
Right? Yeah.
Well, shout out to Katie Hartman at the Great Outdoors Foundation for connecting us. That was really cool. I won't lie. The way she described you, she did not say old. My brain immediately went, because she's like, he's the guy, he's got all the experience, he knows his stuff. And I was like, this dude's 72, he's been here for 40 years, and I was not ready for you.
I got the gray hair. It was I'm like bringing the wisdom.
Yeah,
Then you talk with me like, this guy's not that. Is he really the professional that I hear? So it's very common.
Well, I do.
What year did you graduate high school?
2009. So I'm even younger than I bet you guys thought I was.
Man, he is so young. That is just
that is an old
that is
age.
just so young.
I think that's when Ken graduated.
No, I graduated in 08. Yeah. so that's just very. He's in the prime of his life.
We're about to ask this man what the steelboard plow is like.
Yeah. That's why I was like, we better get this out early. I'm not kidding. I was hiding my age whenever I would hire people because I finally hired someone younger than me because I was like, I need to like gain the respect, right? Because all my staff, I'm like, and finally they're like, we're literally all older than you, John. I was like, I know, but I got the wisdom and the gray hair. So.
All right, we got a good wisdom question for you, and it's actually Kent's. But Kent came up with this question, and I think it's brilliant. If the governor race talking a lot about water quality, and let's say best case scenario, they want to do something about it. The governor
even let's fully paint it out because there's hope right now, right? We have not only is there there's a gubernatorial election coming up, but it's the first time in a long time that there's not an incumbent candidate. And so it feels like it's more open than ever. And it feels like we have the pull of public opinion behind this issue, water quality. And it's sistered with, and I think the latest report that came out shows that it's a fair pairing. It's sistered with our cancer rates. And Iowans, for the first time since I've been paying attention, which is not that long because I'm not that old. Seems like some of us. Yeah, right. Seems like the populace is willing to push for that change and accept that change. And we also have our highest elected office in our state open for election. But it seems almost too just so. I mean, I don't want to talk people out of being optimistic. I don't want to talk myself out of being optimistic. But what really has to happen if we're going to have meaningful, noticeable change?
And let's assume that whoever gets elected in office wants the change and is willing to act on it. So the governor administration will go along with it. What else has to change?
It's such a meaningful question, and it's a hard question because it's a hard fix. And the reality when I talk to folks about conservation and water quality, you have to face the reality that there's no silver bullet. And I can tell you because I've done every practice you can do. There's no thing you can build. There's no change in farming technique that will single-handedly fix our issues in Iowa. It's going to take a mixed bag, and it's going to take a lot of everything to be real. And I also tell people, so what it would take it would take a lot of thinking outside the box. It would take more than just money because there's actually a lot of money being pumped into water quality right now. And it's going to take new techniques and new methods for delivering conservation. And an example of this is we can learn from our history. And if you rewind 100 years ago, think you're here in Iowa, it's 1930, and there is massive amounts of wind erosion. The Dust Bowl was happening. And literally our treasured topsoil is just blowing away. And it's filling houses with a foot of soil. And the government for the first time was like, wow, we got to work with farmers to fix this issue. And the first ever government programs to put conservation on the ground, to work on reduced tillage, to work on putting windrows in, to work on not tearing out all the trees. And it took us 60, 70, 80 years of using those techniques. And we've really, really fixed and made the Dust Bowl's not happening nearly to the extent it was. Yeah. Well, then you fast forward to now, the topics of now are bacteria, nitrates. A lot of these things, they're really, we really understand these just in the last 10, 20 years. And now we cannot use the same techniques we were using 100 years ago for the Dust Bowl. They do not apply to these new things. So that's where it's like everything we've learned the last decade, my team, about how do we actually make a difference is you can't be a government bureaucrat that just sets programmatic. You have to go out and really talk to people and ask questions. And I tell the most, and I call it like, it's the big question. And you can only ask this question in like a safe space. You sit down with the landowner or farmer and you say, what would it take to get you to do these conservation practices? And if you can get people to give you real answers, those are what you have to do to set your program requirements. And now what you need now is government support to change programs. And governments don't tend to change quickly. But what's exciting right now is everyone's talking about water quality, from the Polk County Board of Supervisor race to the governor race. That's very promising because it's going to take flexibility. It's going to take governments being willing to try different and new things and then putting money behind it. And like, we're going to fail, but we got to keep pushing the envelope.
What do the farmers say?
That's what probably gives me the most hope right now is when you do it right and you figure out what it actually takes. And a lot of times it's just a reality of how do you make conservation work with their farm, with their, like, they're all real people. They're trying to get their kids to soccer practice at night. They probably have another job. How do you make conservation work for their life and their farm? And we had some big successes under us now where we sit at a kitchen table and time again, we presented our option and they're like, I would love to do this. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. And then next thing you know, people start coming to us. And that's like the biggest indicator for success is a good program. Is folks like, yeah, you've been working with all my neighbors. What's your deal? Then they actually call us and we don't. And like, the government, the days of the government knocking on your door and like, hi, I'm John. I'm with the government. I'm here to help you farm better. Like, that is not a recipe for success. So breaking through that, like, you start seeing these indicators. And like in Polk County and some of our neighboring areas, we are starting to see some amazing indicators. But now it's like, for me, it's like, all right, we got to do it 50 times more because we still got a big issue.
Why are the farmers reaching out to you? What changed?
Yeah, what changed is, so to be honest, we have a program called the Batch and Build. And the Batch and Build, it's changed every way that I think about doing private lands conservation, right? So putting conservation on private lands, because the first 10 years of my career, we were doing it the same Dust Bowl era way where, Nick, we'd come to your farm. We're like, Nick, we want to treat all your tile outlets to reduce your nitrates. They're carrying nitrates downstream. And you'd be like, all right, well, what do we do? We're going to install these saturated buffers and bioreactors. They're underground filter systems, kind of like a septic system filtration. And it's going to naturally remove those nitrates, and it's underground. You don't have to do really no maintenance to it. It's just going to sit there, and like if you just have 30 foot of buffer space, we can be careful with your mic.
Make sure you
don't hit it.
Yeah,
not too close.
Well, I was thinking more just lean in a little bit. Yeah.
And so I go to you, and I'm like, all right, and you're like, all right, that sounds pretty good. And in fact, Nick, we're going to cover all the costs. And you're like, all right, that's a pretty good deal. And you're like, awesome. Well, these are kind of new practices. It's going to take us about a year to design one. And you're like, oh, that kind of sucks. And you're like, oh, and then you might be like, well, is it going to fix anything on my farm? I'm like, no, it's just going to make the water cleaner for folks downstream. You're like, all right, well, I guess I'm still down to help people. You're like, awesome. So year goes by, we come back with your design. You're like, all right, Nick, I need you to go find a contractor because we're going to cover all the costs, but I need you to hire the contractor. You front the money, and then in 3 to 6 months, we'll reimburse you the money. And you're like, all right. So if you can find a contractor and if you can front the money, and then you oversee construction and we come out and check on it. If you make it through all those steps, and then, at the end of the year, we gave you $5,000 to install this. We're also going to 1099 you. So you actually have to pay taxes on all that. What that equates to is people weren't making it to the finish line. And that conversation is different if your soil's eroding away and we're going to help you and maybe even just split the cost. So then what changed was we're the technical experts. So we're like, Nick, listen, we've targeted your farm. We know what'll work, and we're going to work with you and all your neighbors at the same time. We're going to come in, and if you just give us permission, we just like to come out and survey, see what works. We'll install all these at the same time. We'll hire the contractor. We're the professional. We'll make sure it gets done. And to be honest, we're going to tear your field up a little bit. But when we leave, we're going to walk with you and make sure we get it all back to functional and working again. And we're going to move on, and we're going to go on to the next farm. And it's just easy. And it's an easy button for conservation.
So I love this. I want to play a little devil's advocate here because I do agree with this. I want people to know personally. I think that's a good program, a good way to do it. If you went to 3M and 3M was poisoning, let's say 3M was poisoning our water. Crazy idea.
Why you got to name a company?
Yeah, very specific.
Well, because 3M's in my town, Knoxville. Yeah, right. And so you go to 3M and they are dumping stuff into the water. And you say, hey, 3M, we don't like this. We don't like the water. So here's what we're going to do. As the public, we're going to clean the water coming out of your factory going into the river. And we're all going to pay for it together. You don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of the contractors. You just keep making your money. right?
Yep.
Doesn't that feel kind of like the same thing?
So think about it this way. So you're a farm, and maybe I go to your farm again, Nick, and you're like, hey, I'm a no-tiller. I have buffers in place. I've worked with my local NRCS office. I've done all this conservation, and like you've done what you've been taught, and you've changed the rhetoric of your family, and like you've worked with your dad to change your farming techniques.
Yeah, which is a tough thing to do.
And you're like, that tile, I've drank out of that tile my whole life. That's crystal clear water. There is an education aspect of it that it's different than when you see soil washing off your field, or you see soil that you've applied manure and you see it washing off your field. That's different than nitrates. For decades, everyone thought that crystal clear water was clean. It does not. There's an educational aspect of it. And a lot of it is also natural processes. So those tile is really, in many cases, required to get our productivity in our fields. And with that, we see what we call like a naturally leaky system. So it's not only like, in many cases, it's not even what you're putting on your field, but it's natural leaching of nitrates out of your dark, rich Iowa soils in north central Iowa. So in many cases, a lot of these guys, they've ponied the buck. They've done lots of stuff. Their career, but they're missing this piece, and that's where this stuff's new to them. So one, you can say there's an education aspect, and then there is like natural processes too. So it just makes the conversation really complicated. And then if you layer on to like, how do you even, like, do they even know what a saturated buffer is? And that's where, like, I don't know that it's the end all game, but for now it is. If nobody's installing these, so in like the first 6 years of my career, we only installed 5. And one of my watersheds, our goal was to do 100. Like, we're not getting it. So we didn't even know how to install them. We can't take a year to design one. We got to design one in 6 weeks and be done with it and move. And and if we build 20, like, there's efficiencies to government. So just like, if we build a road in front of someone's house, like, we don't generally like go to every person on that road and be like, hey, homeowner, your section of road, like, our mind says, how do we treat water quality like a public improvement? And my job as a conservationist is like, I don't set the rules. And so right now, all I know is we got to treat every tile line. So my job as a conservationist is treat every tile outlet in my county. Now, when the rules change, then we will change with the rules. But right now, the rules we're given is it's a voluntary system. And the only way we're going to make a difference, and I know from sitting across the table with many of these folks, like, a lot of them are doing great stuff, but they're missing some pieces of it. And usually it's tied right to those nitrates. Like, they need to understand more. And they need to understand also too about there are things that they are doing with how they farm that also impacts it. And so that's where it's like buried in this education. And it's just the government again saying, hey, we're here to teach you. I'm gonna have you come to this field day. Like, nobody comes to the field day. So it's just, how do you keep that conversation going? And for me, like, at the end of the day, we have to treat the water, and it's not my job to change the rules. So if the rules get changed, then it'll be, say the rule does get changed and they're required to treat every tile outlet. Well, who's going to design that? Are there enough contractors? Do contractors even know how to install that? So if nothing else, we are setting the stage for mass production of conservation practices, which will, like, there has to be that technical assistance side of it.
If you could snap your finger and put one conservation practice into place anywhere on farmers, on their tile, saturated buffers, more money somewhere, if you could snap your fingers and change one thing, what would you change?
So on the ag landscape, I would snap my fingers and I would put buffers on every stream, and I would put saturated buffers or bioreactors under the ground underneath those, because a buffer itself is going to tackle a lot of the surface runoff. A buffer by itself is not going to tackle the subsurface, the tile drainage. It's a two-part system. And that's why, like, if the farmer already has buffers, we're like 75% of the way there. We just got to finish the functionality of that buffer. And you can't do a saturated buffer if you don't have 30 foot of grass in the two. And then you layer on, don't forget about habitat. So we've like really degraded the Iowa system. We're like, I enjoy wildlife. And so buffers with a practice that treats the tile as saturated buffer together is probably my number one. And if we just had that on every stream, I guarantee we would make a big jump in the right direction. We haven't got to wetlands are probably my favorite single practice, but there's pros and cons to those. But wetlands are like probably my number 2.
Yeah, but I mean, wetlands, it feels less doable to have a huge mosaic of wetlands across Iowa in terms of changing the public's mind and taking farmland out of farming.
Wetlands, to me, the wetland practice is almost a different mind shift. It's where you're almost waving the white flag on, like, look, we all know that ground shouldn't be farmed, and let's restore it to what its natural function is. But
aren't wetlands like really productive for farming?
Well, they can be if you drain them.
That's what I'm saying.
But some of that anaerobic matter that's lining, the bottom of a pond or the bottom of a wet area is also not very productive. Right?
Well, and I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just saying you were saying everyone thinks, oh, we definitely shouldn't farm this. But I think some farmers are like, well, this used to be a wetland and it's like 230 bushel an acre corn. So it'd be hard to fight that mindset.
I mean, yes, but there's also wetlands where they flood out every third year. You know what I mean? So you can have 2 good years of farming off it, and then year 3 it's a total.
Well, it's not that big of a deal because other people pay the
claim,
crop insurance.
Yeah.
So.
Those are all. So let me give you the pitch of my wetland.
Yeah, sell me.
So the thing about wetland. When I say we're building a wetland, now imagine we're building a pond dam that just has shallow water above it. So it's like a construction. We're not finding wet spots and putting water back on it. We're saying we're finding concentrations of the right amount of water, the most polluted water, and we're plopping a built wetland that is man-made to treat the water. So any given county, they only have so many of these sites, but my ideal site, right, we have 1,000 to 5,000 acres draining to a corner of a field. That corner of the field it happens to also be the wet corner of the field, and they probably quit farming it years ago. So it's just overgrown in willows, and we have this water just rushing in. So there's thousands of acres all come to this one point, and all those tile outlets, all like dozens and dozens of tile. In fact, this one wetland could equate to 50 saturated buffers. One wetland. And so we come in and we target that spot, and that wetland has to be 0.5% to 2% of the drainage area. So if it's 100 acres, a half acre wetland can treat 100 acres. And so you scale that up. So we build a 50-acre wetland, and that can treat your thousands of acres. And it's all in the corner of this field. And now we come and we build that dam. And now we've treated that entire watershed. We've also created a microcosm of everything Iowa used to be.
Yeah.
You build and all the birds come back. All the things come back.
Beavers and muskrats.
And it's in that corner of the field that is not competing with row crop. Because if you want to have a losing battle with Iowa farmers, try and take their good row crop and put it into a wetland.
Right.
So if you can maximize your drainage area, minimize your fight with good cropland, and then you can layer on all those habitat stuff and water quality. And then we can do a multi-stage outlet that also reduces flooding impacts downstream. So we can tackle habitat, water quality, and flood control all in one spot. And now I don't have to worry about working with all those 20 farmers because we tackled it all in this one spot.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's a tool. And they don't work everywhere. But so you find the right spots.
That works with our Iowa Wetland Mitigation Bank or whatever, right?
So that's a whole nother world of, and in fact, usually
Yeah, do you know Kevin Griggs?
Oh yeah, I know Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah.
And Polk
He's
County,
coming on the pod here in a couple weeks, I think.
Yeah, I've known Kevin since day one. He was a commissioner in Boone County when I was working on the Big Creek Lake Watershed Project.
Interesting.
And and he's a great consultant. So he works in the private sector, and I've had him help us do watershed plans. He's big in the ag mitigation banking now. And the negative of wetlands is red tape. And so we tell every 2 years of us working through design and permitting, it's like the government at its weakest is all this. But mitigation,
the government at its weakest.
Dude, it's crazy. The difficulties of us just trying to build.
You are the government at its strongest.
No,
I mean, I'm really enjoying listening to you.
I tell you, I love working for Polk County. It's like the perfect level of government for me because, literally, my board of supervisors, they have told me, John, go make a difference. Here's money, freedom. We know that there's going to be failures, but find successes. And then double down. And then we keep doing that. And we're in this nice spot. It's unique. Yeah. How do you engage county governments? Because we're it's just nice. You're not so big, but you're big enough to make a difference. And so, so mitigation, I think this is a little bit of an urban analogy, but you're a Walmart and you want to build a parking lot. Again, not to name drop one organization, but we all know. Big parking lots, right?
We talk about Walmart a bunch.
Yeah, right? Yeah, they're not going to like this story. But they built a 2-acre parking lot. And there was a 0.5 acre of wetland there. Now, that's bad. They've destroyed that wetland. So they are now required to compensate the land for that wetland loss. So they have to go to purchase a mitigation credit. And so they hurt one wetland. They have to go pay for a 1/8, double the amount of wetland to be built somewhere else to compensate. And so the same thing goes for agriculture. If you go tile an area that's never been tiled, even if it's very degraded, that is a wetland. So it has wetland signatures. You now have to go pay to compensate because if you want to hurt that wetland, you're going to have to help a wetland somewhere else. And we used to be Walmart can build a little wetland right here. And should Walmart's own and maintain wetlands? That answer is no. Instead, so now it's usually Polk County, we have the biggest mitigation bank in the state. So we have 200 acres of wetlands that we have built, and then folks pay into us, and that basically recoups our costs for restoring those wetlands. It's really complicated. Yeah. But the problem is reality too here. So I want to build a wetland. If I'm building a wetland, this man-made wetland on top of a degraded farm wetland, are we destroying that wetland? Well, in some government's eyes, you are. And so, like, I could have to pay mitigation for a wetland by building a wetland. That's the most circular thing I've ever said. And so, again, that's red tape. And, like, that's, again, change that has to happen from the top down. We need to look for avenues to simplify and, like, make conservation easier when we talk about those big things we can do.
Yeah.
Man, so wetlands, technical here. What percentage of nitrates are you hoping to pull out of the water from when it enters the wetland to when it leaves?
Yeah, please don't quote me on this, but I know not to be. I'm not a scientist. I'm a guy. I'm a social. I'm over here to. How do I get people to do?
I'm sure you know Dr. Larry Weber.
Oh yeah,
he's a friend. Yeah, he's a friend of ours, and he is a scientist. So when we have him on next, we'll ask him to correct you.
Yeah, we're supposed to go see him in like a month.
Yeah, Larry will be like, John's a good guy. I like that guy, and he'll probably be like, those numbers are wrong.
He's got some wild stories too. Have you heard about his elk hunts out in Idaho?
No, I have not.
He took his 2 children over a waterfall on a raft.
Dude, that's what I'm talking about. That's why I try to friend everybody on social media, because I love, like, seeing people, and I hate, like, you just see the professional side of them, and, like, to understand, you got to see the other side of them.
Oh, he's a ton of fun,
man.
Yeah. So I'd be like, so we do a wetland. I'd say we should expect for that several thousand acres coming out 60% reduction. And like, if I do a saturated buffer, the number they say is 55. Well, with all the monitoring we've done, we've seen up to a 90% reduction for saturated buffers. Like bioreactor, about the same native of a bioreactor. You got to dig up the wood chips in 10 to 15 years. That sucks because the wood chips all degrade.
Yeah.
Saturated buffer, they were.
I wondered about that. Surely there's long-term maintenance on.
Yeah, so we've actually recharged our first ones. We've done it. It turns out it was easier than I thought it would be, and we already have relations. But it's just
put like a septic lid up on the surface where you can just pop the hatch.
You dig it all up,
yeah,
right?
so we have to scrape off like 2 foot of soil. You got to dig out the old wood chips, put new wood chips in.
You're going in there with an
but for
excavator.
a person with an excavator, that's like a half day's of work.
It really, that's the truth. Like some of the stuff, it just seems like it ain't that big a deal though.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was very anti-bioreactor, as a person who's maybe installed more bioreactors than anybody in the world, like they've grown on me though because they can filter the water about twice the speed of a saturated buffer, so they can handle bigger drainage areas. So they shorter life, but they have the right application, and that's where.
And like flooding, I imagine they help more with like really quick rains or something like that.
They do. They provide that pulse control, and they push the water through it.
Are the expired wood chips in there? Are those babies just like hot with nitrate when you pull them out? Like,
so what's in there? So
you take one look at them and you get eye cancer or something.
Kent, you said anaerobic. I was impressed with that.
I used to be a biology teacher.
Solid point for you. So like the wetlands, it's actually the muck in the bottom of the shallow that's providing an anaerobic environment where bacteria grows. The bacteria, again, getting too sciencey for me, my limits. The bacteria eats the nitrates or it releases the nitrogen gas. Boom, win. Saturated buffers, they use black Iowa topsoil where that same bacteria lives. Boom, it's doing its thing. You're pushing the water through the bacteria. Wood chips, high in carbon, just like Iowa topsoil, just like the pond muck. The wood chips is now the media that the bacteria grows in. The bacteria is literally eating up those nitrates and it's releasing as a harmless gas. So you're all about putting nitrate water into the proper environment where bacteria can do what it naturally does.
So the problem is just those chips are so broken down by the bacteria and decay.
Correct. So we just spread them in the field. They're like just nice organic matter, and we just got to put in fresh carbon for the bacteria to grow.
That makes sense.
To do its thing.
That's interesting because we talk about carbon. Oh, we don't want we want carbon in the ground. We don't want it in the air. But the nitrates, we want nitrates to turn into nitrogen which we want it in the air.
It's the main element in our atmosphere.
And it took me a long time to make this connection, but so I'd always heard, and I love using like wetlands are like the nature's natural kidney, provides natural filtration. Yeah. And all these like even like cover crops, saturated versus bioreactors, they're all mimicking what wetlands do by providing an anaerobic environment for bacteria to grow in. They're all using the same scientific technique, and it's just about how can you apply them, put dirty water into this environment, clean it, let it pass through, be clean, go downstream.
Yeah. You talk very fast, so I might have missed it, and that's not a problem. Please keep talking fast. Do you know like a percentage roughly of wetland, like what nitrates that it pulls out?
Yeah, I think in our nutrient reduction strategy, the safe number is like 60%. It's in the 50 to 60% range. But bigger drainage areas and is like you have other practices that have higher percentage, but they can handle way less water. So again, that's where so none of these practices say 100%. There is not one. And a lot of times,
part of the problem is we just got to quit putting so much nitrogen down in our soil,
or putting the appropriate amount down, and knowing that we're also, if you think from Des Moines north, wet, heavy, black soils, a lot of natural high nitrate loads come out of that. Yeah. We've become very dependent on tile, because corn and soybeans don't like wet feet, and you lower the water table, your yields go up. And so this tile is going in. Now we have a natural leaky system that now has a way to go right into that tile and go downstream. And it
so
can be
that
exacerbated.
nitrate would already naturally be existing there in elevated levels.
It's a combination of both. And
the prairie that would have once stood on all that soil 200 years ago handled that nitrogen better, sequestered it better, used it better. And
the water wasn't leaving as fast.
Right.
100%. All those things.
If you could get rid of laying nitrogen down for fertilizer, or get rid of the level of tiling that we have, which one would you get rid of?
I'd probably get my personal opinion. I'd probably get rid of the tiling, because the tiling is providing the avenue for it to move faster and not have to work its way through all those natural processes and soils that can do the work for us.
Are you familiar with Barn Talk?
I'm not.
It's probably the biggest Iowa podcast, and they're great. I really enjoy them. The dad said recently on a podcast that there's only 2 ways for farmers to improve their efficiency and make more profit these days. It's storage, so you're getting better at marketing and you can choose when you sell it, and tiling. Everything else, better machinery, all this stuff doesn't actually ROI, but those do. And so when farmers have extra money, they have 2 options.
Yep.
And one of them's tiling. And he's like, I think that's part of the reason we see so much tile going in. But I am concerned. And Kent has brought up really good points. He's like, we're breaking the water cycle. You ship all your water out of here. And now Dr. Larry Weber, I think it was him who said, we actually get most of our water from like an updraft from the Gulf. Which was very interesting to me. And so that...
Our precipitation.
That quelled my worries, but I'm still a little worried about how much we just ship water out of here as quickly as possible.
And you think about it, I always think about incremental improvements. Like, we have to be making change that makes... And so one of the things I want, like, I'm on a mission to do it, is so I know all these tilers, because they're the same guys I hired to install 50 saturated buffers. And they're good, and they're businessmen. They're out, and they're very good at what they do. And they know how to install these, and they know how to design them on a napkin, and they will work. And so I'm like, every time we put in tile, what a better time to just put in the filtration system. So just like you put in a septic, like you build a house, your water doesn't, your poop doesn't dump right in the stream. The septic is installed with the house.
Right.
We have to get to a point where every foot of tile that goes in is also being installed with a practice. And now I've failed the last 2 years to do that. And part of that is because, hey, the contractor actually calls us. They're like, hey, I talked to this landowner and they'd be down. Like, what a perfect way to interact.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sweet. And they're like, well, we're going to do it in 2 months. And I'm like, well, man, it's going to, like, how can we design faster? And it's not even that, but then, like, if you install a practice, it has to go through proper, like, design review approvals through more government processes. And I'm like, I can't get it designed fast enough, even though I know, because we've installed hundreds of these, we could just do a napkin and it will work. So that's, again, we have to figure out, because that's how it should be. If you're going to put it in, you have to mitigate it. Just like you hurt a well, you got to mitigate it or avoid it completely. If you would put in tile, you should mitigate at the same time.
Yeah.
And again, that's not a cure-all, but that's certainly a good incremental improvement.
Well, and you think it would almost be better for the guys laying the tile, to have one more product to sell.
Oh, big
as
time.
Part of their kit, that you're buying when you have it put in. I wonder how much rogue tile there is, functional rogue tile in Iowa. I invented that term. That's not like an industry standard.
You
as
say
far
rogue?
Yeah, just because, like, when I live on my family farm that's been in the family since 1927, and I know there's old clay tile.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. That's the answer.
And right now my grandfather's 89. If I had to say, hey, Grandpa, where are the tile lines on this farm? He would probably know where most of them were.
Yeah.
But once he's gone, I'm the next person to know the most about the farm. I have no idea. And so you got to think that that's happened. Well, first of all, it's unusual to have an 89-year-old grandfather, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to figure there's a lot of families that are already 1-2 generations away from knowing where this tile was put. So even if we wanted to put a bioreactor at the end of every tile line, I mean, are we still going to have great job? We got 50% of the tile, and we have no idea where the other stuff is.
That's like a great point, and I'd say we're already there. Because I can tell you from talking with dozens of farmers, maybe 10% have a good idea of where all their tile is. Like, some of that generational knowledge is already gone. Yeah. And we also joke. It's a joke. It's a painful joke. But we spend a year getting all these projects lined up. We go out, every time we're digging a hole in a field, expect to find tile you didn't know were there. Even like we walk every stream and we flag every tile, and we still miss tile. Mm-hmm. And so like, even if, say right now, we're like, everyone has to treat every tile. We have no idea where they are. So like, you're gonna have to have someone goes out and they find every tile. Like, that's that's a real workload. We spend dozens of hours every spring walking streams and finding tile outlets after we get permission from landowners. And so again, it's just not simple. And like, you got to be ready for those changes. Or like right now we can get people to want to work with us, but now it's like, okay, first step is we're going to walk the field. We're going to find every tile. We're going to have trained professionals who know how to find tile.
Yeah.
And then we're going to survey the tile. And it used to take us 4 hours to survey a tile. We have it down to 45 minutes. And so again, now how do you train more people to be able to do that? Maximize efficiencies. Yeah. If people are willing to, or they have to work with you, are you ready to help them?
I think what we're identifying here is a potential industry. If somebody wanted to develop that skill for, I know there's technology too that people use, like LiDAR and stuff, to be able to, you can
like an X-ray for the ground.
Yeah, some kind.
After a rain, it should be pretty easy because you should be able to figure out where the water's streaming quickly,
unless the stream comes up and then they're all underwater.
Yeah, so that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I do a lot of shed hunting, and I get on all kinds of permission on all kinds of farms to go walking, and it's amazing the old tile you see just sticking out of a
it's everywhere.
Bank. Yeah, it's like, I wonder if this guy even knows this is here.
Hand dug 100 years ago. That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, they're literally hand digging them.
Yeah, that's what Ted Corrigan was saying. So we interviewed him a couple years ago, and he was like, we weren't asking people to not tile in Northwest Iowa. We were just asking for some sort of permit system because they were having these 48-inch giant tile lines that basically
they had those. Are you talking about the ones that went straight to the aquifer where those
that was
drainage?
That was another thing, but these were like they would put all these farmers' tiles together, and then they had this mega 48-inch tile that would just dump into the river.
Yeah.
And he's like, it looks clean, but then you measure it for nitrates and it's like 40 parts per million.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just wanted a permit on those things.
Yeah.
And so okay, I'm going to shift a little bit unless, Kent, you had something else on this.
No.
You might not know anything, but I want to poke you on this in case you do. You guys have some data centers going up. And there is obviously the public narrative is that it will use all your water and it will destroy the water industry in the area. And then I've also heard people on a podcast that
drive up your electrical bill.
Yep. And I've heard people who are understand the technology technically very well. Like they've designed these things on podcasts say, no, it's all cycled water. It's not actually an issue, right? Do you know enough to actually explain, not necessarily the details, but would it affect Polk County's water? Is it going to affect it greatly?
So I've been on the sidelines a little bit learning like many other folks. And I've also been in some negotiations with some of these data centers who are looking similarly to mitigation, trying to offset their negative impacts, which has made me feel better. Yeah. Because I think the recycling of water is a real thing. So it's not as simple as they cool their stuff and then they put it back in. Like, no, that's going off site and getting treated now. So from my interactions with them, they're trying to identify projects that they can find water and like put it back down into the ground that otherwise would just be running off. And so I've been feeling better about the more like, and to work with them, you have to go through rather intensive negotiations and calculations about proposed projects. So they're like, we have funding, we'll invest in projects, but we have to really do our due diligence to make sure like we're getting out what we're telling people we're getting out. And what I've seen is some of the bigger data centers, like they're very formalized. And they're really trying to set the industry standard. They're like, listen, we want to make sure everyone's playing on the same level playing field. So on that front, I've been getting all good vibes, but like everything I hear in the news and things, like kind of scary, bad vibes. So and it's all new. Like none of the conservation I would know about. Like they use the term replenishment. Replenishment 2 years ago, nobody like that word wasn't a conservation term, and now that's like the term they're bringing to Iowa.
So these bigger companies, and for your sake, we don't have to name drop them, but these bigger companies are saying we'll actually take water from the river and we'll put it back into the ground for us to use later, for the public to use later. What's an
example would be like, okay, I want to build one of those big wetlands, right? And we're going to catch 2,000 acres of drainage. And in that wetland, a certain amount of that will infiltrate and go into like the groundwater and replenish it. And so we have had an opportunity to present some of those projects, and we're doing very different calculations. It's not about how many nitrates we're filtering. It's not about how much flood water we're retaining. It's truly about how much of this water that's going into this wetland that maybe costs $1 million to build, how much of that helps them accomplish their mission? And if it accomplishes their mission, then they're like, oh, we'll actually provide some investments to help build that wetland. But we've been actively learning about, well, what are the boxes? And again, there's like 50 types of wetlands. What wetlands do the best for replenishment? Because if I actually care about Iowa and I'm a conservationist, I want to make sure that what I'm actually working with them on is actually a good thing. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I'm loving hearing this because I think that's that's a part of this conversation that has not been talked about. And to me, it's the greatest golden opportunity any business can ask for, right? I have somebody with bottomless wallets showing up saying, hey, I want to buy something from you. And we're going, no, you can't. And it's like, okay.
But we do, the fears are reasonable.
Yeah, right. And instead, it's an opportunity to say, great, I'm glad, we have these concerns, and by the way, it's going to cost you infinity dollars. And they say, all right.
And they can always have
infinity dollars. But instead, we're just stiff arming them, and we're not. And let's be honest, you know how this is. We can fight this tooth and nail for a generation. Once all those people are dead and gone and demented in a nursing home somewhere, it's going to happen. And so, to me, we need to we need to seize the opportunity. We have a huge problem here in Iowa with our water quality, and it's going to be extremely expensive to fix it. And here we got this truckload of money coming in saying, hey, we want to do business with you. Then we just need to very carefully set our terms and make it so that we can help chip away at this huge problem.
Like, hey, you can be here, but you have to invest $120 million into Des Moines Waterworks for their build out of cleaning the water, or something like that, where they could actually help solve the problem. So just point blank, do you believe the data centers being here, knocking on the door, negotiating with us, and what they offer and what they expect to take away from our communities? Because there's both net negative or net positive. A lot of companies talk about conservation, but I want to tell you about a company that actually puts their money where their mouth is. birdhuntersupply.com is a great company. I know the owner, Joe. He's a great dude. We've had the privilege of working with him, and let's just say he really puts his money where his mouth is. A large percentage of his profits from Bird Hunter Supply go to a conservation organization of your choice at checkout. So your purchase actually puts money towards conservation, and it's not just a roundup. It's not just asking you to donate on top of your purchase. This is included with your purchase. This man is running his very own small business version of Pittman Robertson, except without all the government stuff. I'm a big fan of that. So whether you're buying hunting apparel, decoys, dog training gear, you are actually going to be giving back to conservation. That is my friend Joe at birdhuntersupply.com. We love that company. We love what they have going on. Oh, and they do a really great job with their website. Makes it very easy. birdhuntersupply.com.
I think on the waterfront, which is where my expertise lies, and the many conversations I've had, net positive.
Okay.
I think what Kent just described is really where my mind's at. I think they can be a part of our solution. The key is knowing Iowa is different than California. Iowa is different than Colorado.
Right.
If you're coming into Iowa, we need to figure out how do we best work with you in Iowa to benefit Iowa. And we're having those conversations right now. And I honestly, today, I feel really good about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. People are complaining and yelling on social media, but they aren't sitting in the room with them, and you are. And I would argue that most of them don't.
Well, it's a great PR opportunity for these companies as well.
To say we solved Iowa's water quality issue.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
And you can Google Polk County and data center, and you will find projects that we've co-invested on that they've truly, I can say, have helped protect and install. And then a part of it, they now require 10 years of monitoring after installation to actually quantify what benefits did they actually get. And again, I feel even better. So we're going to continue those conversations, and hopefully we can figure out a way to mutually everybody wins.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
that's a good optimistic take, and I think it's fair too to say, reiterate what Nicolas said. The concerns are valid,
100%.
That people that are resistant to this, but it just seems to me too much of a golden opportunity to get big, much needed change.
So I want to talk about this, the specifics of not you, but Polk County is going to pay, is it $200,000, I believe I read, for Iowa water quality monitors. And I assume you're just shipping it over to IHIR.
Yep, Larry Weber's crew.
Yep, and they're taking care
That's
of
what
it.
I always call it too.
Yeah,
it's too hard to remember all the
It's
letters.
a terrible name. I'm like, come on, guys. I know you're the government. Chill on the acronyms.
No kidding.
Some of the it's actually becoming quite a big deal to entrepreneurs. They don't allow acronyms in their companies because it creates an us and them, and it makes it harder for people to integrate. Anyway,
More of a KFC
I got a good
kind
story.
of guy.
but so what actually happens with those water monitors? Where do they get placed, and what are they like? Tell us something technical about them. Are they just beeping every 20 minutes where they're measuring? It's like constant flow. That's a hard thing to measure.
Yeah. So again, I specialize in getting people to do stuff, and everyone give me their money and trying to save the world, right? But I know it's my job to like know all this stuff, right? And people like Larry Weber, they're very intense, and they're very like, and they are really like the monitoring side, which it's hand in hand. If we're going to try and make a difference, and we invest money and we build hundreds of things, and we work really, really hard, man, I hope it works. And so to me, this monitoring system that IIHR has been going for over a decade, they're real-time sensors. They provide real data, and it's really a very good data network that's existing and in place, and they have sensors all over the state. And so that investment of $200,000 came from because their funding has been jeopardized, and they had some budget cuts. And so, and again, if Polk County, our motto is leading the way, if we actually, and I throw that at myself all the time, but we actually want to try and lead the way, we got to be open to new partnerships and funding those things. And so IIHR came to Polk County and they said, listen, we believe this information is vital to Polk County because there's this many sensors already in place with 10 years of continuous data upstream of Polk County. And if you guys are trying to keep making a difference, you got to know if your stuff's working. And that's how I want to use it. And so they're like, we're still negotiating. We're trying to figure out our long-term funding strategy. But today, we need $200,000 from Polk County to keep your sensors up and running and give us time to keep working on the state-level funding need. And again, credit to that's above me, but our Board of Supervisors was like, yes, this is a real thing. We see the benefit to Polk County. We see the benefit to Des Moines Waterworks and all of our Central Valley communities. Keep it going. Don't have a break in the data because without data, we will never know if we're really making a difference.
Maybe you can't say, but so if you want to, no comment or something like that, you're welcome to. It seemed to have been kind of more or less pitched as a Doge type of cut, that funding. Is that accurate, or is it likely that a private interest group that benefits from Iowans staying in the dark on water quality?
Oh, a little conspiratorial.
That their levers they can pull and their shoulders they can tap, because we have a water quality problem. It seems very illogical to say, yeah, we got a terrible water quality problem, but you know what? This stupid monitoring, it's not doing anything.
Yeah, that drop in the bucket, $500,000.
Right, I mean,
truly.
And so, is it more of an active attempt to derail monitoring because the people that benefit from less monitoring would push for that? Or is it truly, nope, we just got to, save where we can?
You're right, Ken. I definitely can't answer that question fully. But what I will say, there's a lot of different perspectives in Iowa. There's a lot of people with different powers, with different motives. And there's a lot of people that are really goodwill that are working really hard to try and tackle this water quality stuff. There's a lot of legislators that are part of SF 512 that invested a lot of money over the next decade into water quality. And there's a lot of stuff happening in Iowa so some folks believe, I think we have checked that box. We're investing money. We're seeing upticks in conservation. And for some of those folks that really believe it, it's also hard to see some of that data that shows like, man, things aren't getting much better. As a conservationist, that's hard for me to say because I've invested a lot of time and effort and money we have into this. And so I think it's all those things wrapped up in one. I think you have personal powers at play. But I think for me as a conservationist, and Polk County believe this, and IIHR believes this, data is an integral part of knowing what changes need to happen. And sometimes the reality is we invest and we work really hard on something and it didn't work. And we got to change up and do something else.
Can we have as many acres in corn and beans and get water quality to the level that we need it to?
Ooh, man, going straight for the...
I think
jugular.
This guy sees the numbers, you know?
I think the folks, so like while I focus on how do you get people to work and do conservation, how do we improve speed, how do we improve design, how do we get more stuff going and diversify, blah, 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 blah. Other folks spend equally as much time and effort on what we're growing and how we're growing it and the economy behind it and the two crop rotation we're in. And I think everyone points to we're growing too many of two crops in Iowa for a sustainable like ecosystem, healthy water. And so we have, it's not even going on a limb. We have to look at diversifying what we're growing and even just different crops that have different growth zones, different applications of nutrients, different root systems, just changing what we grow. There's lifelong conservation that says that's the number one thing we need to do. So I 100% agree. We're growing too much. It's very important, and folks work really hard. Iowa farmers work really hard to try and do it the right way. But there is a lot of benefits of bringing more diversification to our land. There's a lot of benefits to bringing cattle back on the landscape, to bringing hogs back on the landscape, and doing it in the right way. But there's diversity breeds critical thinking. It breeds like not being stuck in a corner. It breeds freedom to do things different. And so all those things happen if we grow more different things.
My first thought, Vermeer should definitely just drop that $500,000 for the water quality monitors, because if it pans out how they want it to, there'd be way more pasture in Iowa, and with all their balers and all their mowers, they'd make a bunch of money. But
well, that's the next part of this. A thing that, and I think we're guilty of this too, Nicholas, that we don't talk. We've definitely addressed it to some degree, but it's easy to just look at it as corn and beans because from a surface area of Iowa, that's the thing. But confined animal feeding operations, right? Is that what CAFO stands for? These hundreds, if not thousands, of animals into a building, and Chris Jones had in his book, The Swine Republic, got into some of the, I guess you'd say, biometrics of how much fecal matter is produced each day by hogs, poultry, cattle feedlots. I guess you could probably factor in there as well. And that's a huge source of nitrate. And then the pushback from the industry is, but we have these strict guidelines for putting pits under these buildings. And then as the king of common sense, Luke Fritsch, says, but then don't you like pump that out and spray it all over the ground after it's full? And so we have this huge aspect of the livestock side of it too.
Absolutely.
And how does that compare into just, and obviously it's linked. I just talked about the link. You're using it for fertilizer, but how does that all factor into that too? I
think it's the next frontier of what I want my team to get into. And to be honest, we have to get out of Polk County and we have to look upstream, because upstream from us, it's a major contributor. So we had our Central Iowa Source Water Research Assessment, big CISRO report that came out. And one of my personal big takeaways was like, a lot of it was just like, this is stuff I all know. But it really did emphasize some of the flaws in that system. And I'm like, that makes me I want to get in and figure out those flaws. I want to go sit at their kitchen tables and be like, where are we applying this manure? Because I've also heard from soil health experts that applying manure on the landscape is one of the best things we can do. And it's so much better in many ways than applying different types of fertilizer. It's a natural process.
Synthetic fertilizers,
But then I've also and as I've been taking a crash course, and again, we all learn as we go. And I was hearing about how tilling in that manure, it incorporates into the soil better and makes it less mobile. And but if you apply manure with a no-till system, it can cause like mobilization to happen. So it can wash off the land. And I was like, well, stink. We've been pushing no-till.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm like, that just blew my mind. And I'm, again, not my major area of focus, but I'm like, these are great conversations we need to have. And there's just no denying there's literal tons of manure of all types being produced in Iowa. And those things have impacts. So we have to make a legitimate focus on knowing those impacts, getting out there. And for me, it's work with those people, understand the flaws, fix the flaws, do it better, move on, do it 10 times better with 50 more people. And so,
And so that it brings something Kent and I wrestle with is what is better. So everyone can be like, well, those are the problems. Great. How do you fix it? And something I want to bring up before you address it is, because you're so front facing and you're connecting with people, is something we don't talk about very much when we talk about problems is the pain that's going to come with the solution. The biggest, I think actually farmers, if we moved away from it to more rotational, more diversity, like you were talking, they would net more per acre, but their net worth in land would plummet. Because the East and West Coast people that are investing in our land that are helping drive up the prices, not the only factor, but a big part of it, they're doing it because of what they can make with corn and beans, because they don't have to pay for ecological services. If you pay for ecological services, it makes a lot less sense to be dumping money into it. Well, and so those people are actually going to fight against ecological taxes or restrictions and red tape. Well, the pain, so for the farmers who own the land, the pain is going to come through, instead of their land being worth $16,000, it's going to plummet to $8,000, $9,000 per acre. And so when you're conveying a future, when you're thinking about it, when you're by yourself, and we all do this, we go, what needs to happen? What does Iowa need to look like? What are the solutions? How do you see us getting over that economic pain, which economic should not be the altar we worship at, but how do we get over that pain? Yeah.
And it's a hard one for me to wrap around because like there's just so many areas of focus. Now the pain I keep thinking about is all of the Iowa farmers that I know personally, and they're like legit, they're like good people. They're normal folks. They're doing the same way that like they think about things the same way I do as like a family person. And they're really trying to make decisions with the environment, the economy they're working in. And it's a struggle for them. It really is. And I just know when you present options, they really do care. And it's just, if you can figure out ways to make it work, but the big changes we need, does that conflict with like the Iowa farmer, the traditional folks that like their family relies on the land? When I know not like there's a huge spectrum, just like all people. And they're like a lot of them, like they're doing what they know. And so I think the pain is real, and we have to think about, I'm like water, like I'm wholly focused here. We cannot have blinders on. We can't just be like, whether it's government just staying in our lane. We can't be businesses that just stay in our lane. We have to think about like the whole spectrum of things, because it's going to impact everybody. And like the Iowa lifestyle that we've had for a long time, and like folks living in like empowering small communities like Knoxville, like that rely on agriculture, like these things have to be hand in hand, and they're big questions, and it's going to be painful. Everything's painful. That's real, like real talk. 2026, everything's really hard, and there's trade-offs for everything.
There's a couple ways you can deal with pain.
Morphine.
My dad's dad. So my grandpa's no longer living. He had to have all 32 of his teeth pulled, and he chose to do it on a Friday afternoon. And
all of them.
That's intense.
All in one shot. It was when my dad was a kid, and he was like, man, just thinking back on that, my dad had to really be hurting that weekend. And so you can deal with pain that way, or you can be like, you know what, maybe I'll go like 10 trips. I'll do 3.2 teeth each trip, right? And I kind of almost wonder if that sometimes it is the best to do it all up front, right? Like think of like people that get knee replacements. A lot of times people are like, nope, just doing both in one go, and I'll learn how to walk again and do it all one time around instead of two times. And so sometimes it does make sense to go with that quick, intense version of the pain. But other times it makes sense to kind of draw it out, and then as generations shift, and honestly, ecology works that way, right?
Good point.
One of my biggest criticisms for the deer hunting community.
Kent cannot stand deer hunters.
We should talk about that.
That is not true.
No, Kent's a big deer hunter.
I'm a big deer hunter. But one of the things that drives me nuts is when new research comes out, and then everyone's like, all right, yeah, I'm here to listen. How do we help? This is a new thing we got to worry about. But then, man, I've been hunting for 10 years and this hasn't done a thing. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's 10 years and you're on a planet that is ancient. And 10 years in Earth time is nothing, dude. And in an ecosystem, it takes a very long time for progress to happen, for data to really take shape and take meaning. And so I think the same thing is true for our water quality issues, where there is our cancer rate is out of control. And if that gets much worse, we're starting to talk about, is this a place that's even safe to live in? Or are we just some toxic, wasteland? So there is that reality that, we need to get this turned around quickly. But there's also a reality of like, we can't just be so focused on, this is my 75 years here, and it's all got to be rainbows and unicorns sometime during my 75 years. We got to be making decisions that are like, I want to make it better now, but I want it to be great 200 years from now. And I think that's where we can ease some of that pain. So it's not an overnight, wow, my land was worth $20,000 an acre yesterday, and now it's worth $5. And I think if we can spread some of that pain out, then I think these things become more realistic for all the stakeholders.
I think it's a great analogy. And for me, the other part of that story that's like incredibly important is think about how many people just ignore the tooth pain for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
No matter how bad it gets. And
that's true.
They ignore the knee replacement, and they just, because they're not scared of the knee, they're scared of the rehab.
Yeah.
And they do the knee replacement, they don't go to the rehab, and they don't get. Change is hard, and we can't hide the long or short-term fixes because change is hard.
Yeah.
Change is hard for everybody. But when you get people to buy into change, that's when you start seeing some of the fixes. So I think it's true, and we got to weigh the benefits of short and long term, but what we can't do is ignore the change that's needed.
100%.
And I think that a piece that we're missing in conservation right now and conservation advocacy is vision. I think the Bible, I think the quote is, without vision, the people perish. And the point is, like, we can say, hey, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. It's going to be very painful to fix it. But if they don't have something to look forward to, So for instance, a child who's raised an abusive household, they'll just stay unless they actually know there's a better option. And they won't go through the pain of like separating from family because they don't know there's a better option. This is their world. This is what they know. And if we could see or experience a better world, the problem was Iowa was the frog boiled, slowly boiled. And none of us remember. Yeah. None of us. And so actually one of the biggest drivers for older farmers that call us and want habitat on their land, you know what it was? It's they miss quail. They've missed the sounds of quail.
100%.
Because they remember when they were a kid. And I don't even think they always consciously go, and there used to be set-aside acres that I could run on as a kid. I don't even think they do all that. I think just subconsciously their brain knows, when I heard those quail, my farm was healthier. I think there's something there. And so creating a vision, and Teddy Roosevelt, I have very strong mixed feelings about. I do not want a president hammering his will through, even if it's something that I really like national parks. But what he did with national parks, and John F. Lacey beside him, what they did with national parks, and what was the other guy's name that was with him that was instrumental in the national? I think he was. Anyway, they created a vision.
Hornaday, maybe.
They created a vision for people to say, maybe my landscape in our area is worth fighting for because look how cool that is. Nature is cool. And Chad Gravy would have something to say about me even calling it nature because it feels like it's something other than us, even though it's like that water that has nitrates in it also makes up most of our body. So anyway, I know that we're on a time constraint today, and so I want to give you a platform. Is there anything else you want the public to know about water quality?
Yeah, I love these opportunities for platforms to just talk about stuff because I get in the grind, right? We're just grinding every day, like just out there working really hard. Yeah. And with that, like the idea of vision, and there's a need for vision and people to you can spout all the progress we're making, or you can spout the progress we're not making. But when we all do fight each other, and it's really unfortunate that sometimes my biggest naysayers are like environmental groups. And again, like for us, many of us we're trying to do the best with what we got. And the other folks, it's their job to make the rules. But in the meantime, we all should be working really hard to make a difference. And that's where it's like, if we could all just understand the other side a little bit more and understand, I get it's not perfect, but I know that every person who installs conservation on their land, we made that much more of a difference. And the same goes for the ag and urban. Polk County is unique. We're truly we're the biggest urban metropolitan in the state. And then you leave 30 minutes out of town and you're in the heart of agriculture, and you might as well be from Des Moines, you're from the moon. And that opportunity to work with both populations, and for our urban residents in our cities, they have their own issues they're dealing with too. And I love that discord between the two, because I know both. And I can tell you the urban folks, there's stuff we didn't talk about today that the urban folks are working just as hard to try and tackle insane amounts of stream erosion, degrading streams, fertilizer applications, storm sewer networks that are combined with sewers, that when it rains too much, it combines with the poop and flows into our streams. And I know, and then we spent today talking all about agriculture, and they all say the farmers are causing all these problems. And I'm like, well, we work with the farmers. There are two sides to that coin, like there always is. And both sides are working really hard. Now, are we doing enough? TBD. I think we need to do more. We need to do it faster. I want to pull all those teeth out like right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is both sides, they have the folks are working really hard. Ag side and urban side, and the ag and urban. The environmental groups are working really hard. The traditional ag groups are working really hard. And the thing is, everyone's talking about it now. So that's what's changed now today versus 10, 15 years ago. Everybody's talking about it. Whether we like it or not, when everybody's talking about it, I think that's a good indicator that people want change.
Yeah.
And so,
and there's more thought power behind it, because that's an energy commodity, is people taking time to sit down and think about a thing, or even complain about it on Facebook. There's more. Well, I'd argue maybe some of that Facebook stuff's not that thoughtful, but you know what I mean? There's always
it's negative real quick.
Yeah. But man, that is a really great point. Thank you so much for what you do in the public sector. And I mean, I'm glad that tax dollars go to jobs like yours. That you really encouraged me just meeting you and hanging out with you. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we got to come back and talk about PFAS and microplastics and all that.
Yeah. That stuff's kind of scary.
I was just in a conference where one of the guys presented on it, and I'm supposed to reach out to get him on the pod here soon. But it is fascinating because everyone's talking about the nitrates. PFAS are talked about, but not combined with water nearly as much.
Yeah, and there's a DNR expert where they checked over the last couple of years every drinking water source in the state of Iowa, and they have spectrums of what's in it and what it means. And again, I've been on a crash course learning about that 2 years ago. I heard the term PFAS, but people asked me, and I was like, I have no idea. Let's go find out.
Man, that's super cool. Well, I mean, Jonathan, you're just one guy, but you're getting a lot done. You're what I hope every government employee is like, and we really appreciate you. And people just like Jonathan, you guys know conservation. It doesn't start on the ground. It doesn't even start in legislation. Conservation happens one mind at a time.